For 15 years, I gave everything. My time, my dreams, my damn soul, just to keep everyone else afloat. I was the one who stayed late, who forgave first, who smiled through gritted teeth. I thought if I loved hard enough, if I tried hard enough, maybe someone would finally see me. Really see me. But he didn't. He called me too sensitive when I cried. Too dramatic when I spoke up. Said I was lucky he stayed at all. Every compliment came with a knife. Every apology felt like a trap. And somehow I still tried harder, bent further, broke more. Until last night. When I came home with dinner in hand and a heart full of hope, he didn't even look up from his phone. "You're exhausting," he muttered. "Maybe if you were less needy, I wouldn't feel so trapped." That was the moment. The one where something inside me snapped, but not in the way he expected. I didn't beg. I didn't cry. I just breathed. And for the first time in years, I heard my own voice. "Hi, I'm Elise. And this is the day I stopped bleeding for people who wouldn't even hand me a bandage. This is the day I choose me." I used to believe that honesty was the cornerstone of our marriage, that no matter what hardships we faced, my husband Eric and I would be truthful with one another. I held on to that belief like a lifeline, even as the cracks in our relationship began to widen. But nothing could have prepared me for what I discovered one rainy Thursday night in October. Eric had told me he was visiting his family, his aging mother who lived 3 hours away. He even packed a bag, kissed me on the forehead and said, "Don't wait up, babe." I smiled, thinking how lucky I was to have a man who still cared for his mother after all these years. If only I had known what that bag really contained. That night, I was curled up on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, sipping wine, and scrolling aimlessly through my phone. Something compelled me to check our shared cloud account, a harmless habit I'd developed when organizing our family photos. That's when I saw them. Text messages that weren't meant for me. Dozens of them. Flirty, intimate messages. Some laced with inside jokes, others with promises of forever. And none of them sent to his mother. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding so violently it drowned out every other sound. The name on the other end of the conversation wasn't one I recognized. Samantha. A heart emoji followed her name. My vision blurred with tears as I scrolled through the thread. He told her he missed her, that he couldn't wait to, finally, have a full weekend together, that he was sick of pretending and ready to move on. Move on? From what? Our marriage? Our life? Me? The phone slipped from my hands and clattered onto the hardwood floor. I sat there, paralyzed. My entire world, a world I had nurtured for over 12 years, shattered with the weight of a few texts. I had suspected things were off for a while. The late nights, the sudden gym obsession, the coldness in his touch, but I chalked it up to stress, aging, life, never this. It's strange how betrayal can feel like a physical blow. I felt it in my stomach first, like nausea crashing through my gut, then in my chest as if something sacred had been violently ripped out. My breath grew shallow, my thoughts chaotic. Was this real? Could Eric, the man I had trusted with my heart, truly be doing this to me? And just like that, shock gave way to anger. I wasn't going to be some fragile wife, weeping in the dark, waiting for my cheating husband to return from his imaginary family visit. No, I wasn't the woman who got lied to and let it slide. Not anymore. My eyes fell back to the phone. Now face up on the floor, the last message still lit on the screen. "Can't wait to have you all to myself this weekend. I booked the Airbnb, remote, just like you like it." An address followed. My hands trembled as I tapped it into Google Maps. It wasn't anywhere near his mother's house. It was a cozy little rental cabin in the woods, romantic, secluded, and 3.5 hours away in the opposite direction. I wiped my tears and stood up. This wasn't going to end with me sitting on the couch, shattered and powerless. No. I was going to that cabin, uninvited. I was going to look both of them in the eyes. And when I did, they would both know exactly who they had underestimated. The GPS glowed against the dashboard in the dark, every mile marker pushing me closer to whatever version of the truth I was about to confront. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. Not my best friend, not my sister, No one. This was something I needed to face alone. The highway was quiet, the hum of tires on asphalt the only constant sound. My thoughts spiraled with each passing tree, every bend in the road pulling back another layer of hurt and disbelief. I kept thinking about the texts, the way he spoke to her, not like someone having an affair, but like someone starting a new life, as if I had already been erased. We weren't perfect, but I thought we were stable. We'd been through job losses, family deaths, money issues, infertility. We had weathered it all, or so I thought. And through it, I stayed, loyal, devoted, supportive. I believed that counted for something, but clearly, to Eric, it didn't. By the time I pulled into the gravel driveway outside the cabin, my fingers were numb from gripping the steering wheel. The place was picture perfect. A framed design, warm porch lights glowing, the faint sound of music drifting out from inside. Romantic, private. Exactly the sort of place you'd take someone you didn't have to lie to. I parked just out of sight, killed the engine, and sat there for a moment. I needed to be sure I was ready, that I could handle whatever I was about to walk into. Because this wasn't just about catching him in the act. It was about acknowledging that the life I had been living wasn't real. That the man I had loved for over a decade had become a stranger. I walked up slowly, each step crunching the gravel beneath my boots. Through the large windows, I saw him. Eric, sitting on the couch in sweatpants and a t-shirt, a glass of wine in his hand, laughing. Next to him was a woman, long dark hair, curled up against him like a cat in the sun. They looked comfortable, intimate, like they'd done this before. And then she kissed him. That was it. The final confirmation. My stomach flipped. I wasn't just being paranoid. I wasn't overreacting. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was betrayal. I could have kicked the door in right then, screamed, thrown something, demanded answers. But I didn't. I wasn't going to give him the power of seeing me shattered. Not yet. I stepped back into the shadows and returned to my car, heart pounding. I needed to think. I needed a plan. Something better than an emotional meltdown that would leave me with nothing but shame and more questions. The truth was, his betrayal wasn't just emotional, it was logistical, financial, strategic. Earlier that week, I had noticed several suspicious charges on our joint account. Airbnb, restaurants in neighborhoods I'd never been to, a new gym membership he claimed was a gift from work, and that's when it all began to click. He wasn't just cheating on me, he was preparing to leave me, and not just leave. Escape. I started combing through our financials. At home, I found recent bank statements tucked away under files in his office. Hidden credit card accounts, payments to a private storage unit I didn't know existed. His employer had even transferred a portion of his salary to a new bank. He was quietly building a life without me, piece by piece. It wasn't just about a weekend getaway with some woman. It was about the fact that he was stealing our future. I had sacrificed my career to support his. I had turned down promotions to stay local while he traveled. I had built our home, managed our budget, and dedicated every part of myself to us, only to be cast aside for someone younger, someone new. He didn't just cheat, he plotted. And that changed everything. Because if he thought I was just going to disappear quietly, he didn't know me at all. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat in my car outside the cabin, watching the windows go dark, trying to silence the storm brewing inside me. I thought about driving away, going home, pretending I hadn't seen what I saw. But that would have meant letting him win, letting him dismantle my life in secret while I stood in the wreckage with no answers, no justice. This wasn't just about a man cheating on his wife. This was about theft, manipulation, erasure. Eric wasn't planning to leave me and work things out amicably. He was planning to abandon me and disappear with everything we had built together. And if I didn't stop him now, he'd get away with it. You see, when we got married, I believed in forever. We combined everything, bank accounts, property, responsibilities. We had no prenup. We didn't need one, he said. What's mine is yours, and what's yours is mine. I took him at his word. Over the years, I let him take the lead financially. He had a stronger background in numbers, and I was happy to trust him. I focused on our home, our families, volunteering, the parts of our life that made it feel real. But now I could see the trap. He was counting on me to stay blind and passive, just long enough for him to pull the final string. He'd already begun siphoning funds into a private account. I found the bank's name in one of his browser tabs. He had changed the beneficiaries on his life insurance, something I hadn't noticed until I called the company just to check after reading the text thread. He'd even listed Samantha as his emergency contact at work. Me? I was nowhere in the picture anymore. And what broke me the most wasn't the betrayal itself. It was how methodical he had been, how calculated. Eric didn't just fall in love with someone else. He orchestrated my downfall behind my back. He had started laying the groundwork months ago. The storage unit contained boxes of personal documents, valuables, and even old photographs, ones he didn't want me to have. He was preparing for a clean break, and worse, he was pretending to still love me while he did it. Coming home, kissing me goodnight, making weekend plans for later, all while building his exit strategy with another woman. I realized something else that night, something that made my blood run cold. If I hadn't found those texts, if I hadn't followed that gut feeling, he might have just vanished one day. Walked out the door, left a note or a text, maybe not even that. And I would have been left alone, confused, broken, and broke. That's when the anger settled into something sharper, something colder. I wasn't just hurt. I was furious. And for the first time in months, maybe even years, I saw everything clearly. This mattered because my entire life was on the line. Because I had spent 12 years supporting him, sacrificing for him, loving him, and now he was planning to repay me by taking everything and disappearing with a woman who had never had to fight for anything. This mattered because women like me are often told to move on or forgive. Because society sees infidelity as a personal issue, not a betrayal of shared lives, finances, dreams. But I wasn't going to play the victim. Eric may have been methodical, but he underestimated the one thing that had kept our lives running smoothly all along: me. I knew the passwords, I knew the patterns, I knew where the bodies were buried, so to speak. And now I wasn't just going to stop him. I was going to make sure he felt every ounce of what he tried to do to me. Not out of pettiness, not out of vengeance, but because he deserved it. Because karma doesn't always work on its own. Sometimes it needs a little help, and I was ready to provide it. By the time the sun crept over the treetops the next morning, I had already outlined my strategy in my notebook, the same one I used to plan family holidays, budget reviews, and anniversary surprises. Except this time, it wasn't for celebration. It was for retribution. Eric wanted a clean break. He thought he could slowly vanish from my life with our savings, our security, and not face any consequences. What he didn't count on was that I would find out, that I would fight back. And I wasn't just going to expose him. I was going to ruin his perfect little escape plan, one lie at a time. The first step was information. Knowledge was power. And I was sitting on more than he realized. I had access to everything: our financial accounts, his work contacts, the cloud storage where he carelessly backed up data from his phone and laptop, years of documents, photos, and now texts and screenshots. I started saving everything, exporting message threads, downloading bank statements. I took pictures of the cabin from a distance, his car in the driveway, the timestamp on my dash cam, and even a blurry image of the two of them through the window. I wasn't going to confront him until I was ready. I needed leverage first. Back home, I got to work. I contacted a divorce attorney, one recommended by a friend who had gone through a messy separation of her own. A woman who didn't just practice law, she specialized in uncovering hidden assets and holding cheaters accountable. We met privately the next morning. I laid out everything: the financial discrepancies, the texts, the Airbnb receipts, the life insurance switch. I handed her a USB drive with every file I'd compiled. Her response? "You're already 10 steps ahead of him." That's all I needed to hear. From there, we began strategizing. In our state, marital misconduct could directly influence alimony and the division of assets, especially when there's clear evidence of infidelity, financial deceit, and an intent to defraud a spouse. Eric had handed me all of that on a silver platter. He thought he was being clever, but his arrogance had made him sloppy. I also learned something else from my lawyer. Samantha, the woman he was cheating with, was not only aware of our marriage. She encouraged him to hide money. In one of the texts, she'd sent him a link to an article. How to prepare financially before leaving your wife. I hadn't seen that until I dug deeper through his browser history. She wasn't just a bystander. She was a co-conspirator. That changed everything. My attorney helped me draft a legal cease and desist notice for both of them, one that outlined our findings and warned of further legal action if they continued to interfere in marital finances. I wasn't bluffing. If they so much as moved another dollar or changed another policy, we were ready to file charges. But I wasn't done yet. The next step? His job. Eric worked in financial advising, a corporate position with strict ethics clauses and zero tolerance for fraud or misconduct. I didn't want to destroy his career. I wanted to remind him that he wasn't untouchable, that choices have consequences. I scheduled a discreet meeting with HR. I didn't show them the full story, yet. I simply reported that I had discovered evidence of him using work resources and time to manage personal affairs and possibly misuse company funds, enough to make them start watching him. And they did. By the end of the week, I had planted seeds in every direction. Legal, financial, personal, professional. I wasn't going to yell or scream or beg for closure. I wasn't going to show up crying or throwing plates. I was going to dismantle his secret life the way he tried to dismantle mine, calmly, methodically, and with receipts. Because karma wasn't coming for him fast enough. So I sped it up, i.e., became a woman on a mission. Each day I took deliberate, calculated steps. No emotional outbursts, no impulsive decisions, just the kind of precision that Eric thought only he was capable of. The kind of control he never imagined I'd reclaim. The first thing I did was separate our finances. While he was still playing house at that cabin with Samantha, I opened my own bank account at a new institution. I moved my paychecks, changed my direct deposit, and unlinked every shared automatic payment I was responsible for. Quietly, no alerts, no statements to the house. I even redirected my mail to a secure P.O. box I set up that same afternoon. Next came the credit cards. I froze the ones we held jointly, told the bank I suspected fraud. Then I pulled my credit report and reviewed every inquiry, every open account. I disputed anything I didn't recognize. He had opened 2 department store cards in both our names. I flagged them. The banks were surprisingly cooperative once I explained the situation. Turns out they don't like being used to fund affairs either. I also made copies of every major document we had. Our mortgage papers, wills, insurance, policies, vehicle titles, tax returns. If he was planning to sell or hide anything, I would have a paper trail to expose him. Then I went further. I pulled the records of the storage unit he was using. It was in both our names, another mistake he didn't think I'd notice. I drove out there one afternoon, unlocked it, and stood in the middle of his getaway bunker. Boxes labeled Eric's personal, some still sealed. I didn't touch them. I photographed everything, logged the dates, and had my attorney issue a notice to freeze any property transfer attempts. While I was at it, I visited our safe deposit box. Inside, passports, old savings bonds, a small envelope of cash, his rainy day fund. I added that to my file of assets. Anything he thought I wouldn't notice, I documented. I wasn't taking anything yet. I was building leverage. A portfolio of truth. One of the most satisfying moves I made came later that week. I uploaded all the texts, photos, receipts, and legal documents to a secure cloud folder. I titled it simply, Contingency. I shared it only with my attorney and my sister, the 2 people I trusted most. I also created a document outlining everything I knew, including dates, details, and timelines. That way, if anything happened, if he tried to twist the narrative, I had the facts on record. Then came the emotional steps, the ones that mattered just as much as the legal ones. I started therapy. I needed clarity, strength, not just for the court battles ahead, but for me. For the part of me that had been twisted into knots, doubting my worth, asking myself what I had done wrong. Therapy helped me unpack that none of this was my fault. That betrayal says more about the betrayer than the betrayed. I also stopped hiding. I told my inner circle the truth, not the edited version, but the raw one. At first it hurt to say the words out loud. Eric's cheating on me. He's been stealing money. He's planning to leave. But once I spoke it, I felt powerful. I wasn't ashamed anymore. I wasn't carrying his lies for him. To my surprise, support came pouring in. My friends rallied. My family offered help I hadn't even asked for. One friend connected me with a forensic accountant. Another offered her guest room if I needed a place to escape. I realized something beautiful. I wasn't alone. And that made all the difference. Eric thought he could isolate me, that I'd be too shocked, too broken to respond. But I didn't just respond. I organized, planned, and prepared. Every digital footprint he left behind became another piece of the puzzle. Every lie was a rope I was now wrapping tighter around his carefully crafted facade. And the best part? He had no idea any of it was coming. Because while he was sipping wine and playing house with a woman who encouraged theft and betrayal, I was turning every brick of our life into the foundation of his undoing. One step at a time. It happened. On a Wednesday. Midweek, mid-morning. The kind of ordinary day he never expected would be the turning point of his perfect little exit. I hadn't told Eric I knew anything yet. As far as he was concerned, I was still the unsuspecting wife. Still, believing his trip was all about family emergencies and supporting his cousin through surgery. Still waiting for him to come home and act like everything was normal, but I wasn't waiting anymore. That morning, I stood outside his office building, calm and dressed deliberately in the navy blue suit he once said made me look too serious. I wanted to look serious. I wanted to look like someone who meant business, because I did. He stepped out of the elevator, adjusting his tie, eyes glued to his phone, probably texting Samantha about lunch plans or weekend getaways. Then he looked up and stopped cold. "Rebecca," he stammered. What are you doing here?" I smiled, not the smile he remembered, not the soft, trusting, hopeful one. This smile was sharp. It had teeth. "We need to talk. Now." He hesitated, scanning my expression for softness, forgiveness, anything he could manipulate. He found none. I walked with him to a nearby cafe. Neutral ground. As we sat, I pulled out a folder and laid it between us. The moment it hit the table, I saw his confidence falter. His fingers twitched. His eyes darted. He knew. Inside that folder were copies of the texts with Samantha, screenshots of financial transfers, printouts of Airbnb receipts, legal letters from my attorney, a list of all the accounts he had secretly opened, photos of the storage unit, insurance beneficiary changes, work violations, every move he'd made, documented, exposed. "I know everything, Eric," I said, my voice steady. "Every lie, every dollar you tried to hide, every time you touched her while coming home to me, I know." His jaw clenched. For a moment, he didn't say anything. Then, like the coward I now saw him as, he tried denial. "You don't understand. It's not what it looks like." "No," I interrupted. "It's exactly what it looks like. And the only thing you should be thinking about now is how you're going to get through this without losing everything." He laughed bitterly. "You can't take everything from me." I leaned in. "I don't have to. You already handed it over." I explained how I had already filed for divorce, how my attorney had frozen our joint accounts, how his employer had been notified of his misuse of company time and resources, how Samantha was named in legal documents for aiding and abetting financial misconduct. His face turned pale. All that smug certainty drained from him like water down a broken sink. I told him I wasn't going to fight dirty unless he made me. That if he cooperated, he could walk away with his reputation mostly intact. But if he so much as touched another cent or tried to spin this to make me the villain, I'd release everything. To his boss, to our families, to the court. It wasn't a threat. It was a promise. I stood up, smoothed my blazer, and walked out. I didn't need to stay and watch him squirm. I had already won. The days that followed moved fast. He tried to stall, delay, plea for discretion. But my legal team didn't flinch. The evidence was airtight. The judge was unforgiving. His clean break fantasy crumbled under the weight of the truth. He lost his job. He lost the house. He lost the respect of every person who mattered to him. Samantha disappeared. Whether out of guilt or self-preservation, I didn't care. She became collateral in the fallout of his deceit. And me? I moved on. I sold the house, kept the car, and started my own consulting business, something I had always dreamed about but never pursued because I was too busy being his support system. Now, I supported myself, fully, fiercely, and freely. The pain didn't vanish overnight, but with every step I took forward, I felt lighter, stronger, more like the woman he had tried to erase but couldn't, because the truth has a way of rising. And karma? It just needed a push. I gave it one. And it landed exactly where it needed to.